The police called about our daughter being caught shoplifting.
My husband shouted angrily over the phone while we were out. They must have made a mistake. Even when I denied it, he wouldn't listen.
What are you doing? As her mother.
He continued to shout on the other end of the phone. But my mind was filled with questions because our daughter, who supposedly got caught by the police, was right beside me at that moment. I married Connor, who was 5 years older than me when I was 29 years old, and the following year, our daughter Taylor was born. Due to his job that required frequent business trips, he was away from home 2/3 of the month from the beginning of our marriage. While it was manageable when it was just the two of us, I worried that this lifestyle, especially after giving birth, would leave our child feeling lonely. Furthermore, there was another source of anxiety. Connor, who used to be very kind, had changed his attitude since I became pregnant with Taylor, and his condescending behavior towards me had increased.
Being a housewife must be nice, right? While your husband works outside, you just lounge around, snacking and relaxing?
That's not true at all. Being a homemaker means having plenty to do every single day. He often treated me like a lazy person. However, it was Connor who asked me to quit my job when we got married and to meet his expectations of perfect housekeeping. I couldn't afford to slack off. Despite this, around that time, he had just been promoted at work, so I attributed his stress to that and tried to be patient. After that, I safely gave birth to our daughter. Despite having small arguments with my husband, we were living relatively happily as a family of 3. However, the time when our life would crumble away was drawing near with each passing moment. It was a holiday, and it was Taylor's 10th birthday. Nevertheless, Connor said he had a day trip for work and left home early in the morning. I had also been out since the morning, but around noon, I suddenly received a call from him on my phone.
Taylor got caught by the police.
As soon as I answered the phone, I heard his frantic voice. Huh? What do you mean?
They contacted me from the police station saying she was caught shoplifting.
Wait, that can't be right.
You idiot. Don't give me excuses about our child. What's wrong with you, acting like a mother?
Even as I tried to deny it, he didn't listen and continued to shout angrily, continuing to shout one-sidedly.
Where are you right now?
From the background noise, it seemed like he realized I wasn't at home. I'm out for a bit.
How could you be away at a time like this? Useless. Fine then, I'll go to the police myself.
With that, he hung up the phone. Stunned by the sudden turn of events, my daughter tugged at my sleeve.
Was that from Dad? What did he say?
Well, he said you were caught by the police. My daughter mirrored my perplexed expression, furrowing her brow and tilting her head. That evening, my husband returned home a bit later than us. However, he didn't mention anything about the perplexing phone call from earlier in the day. Feeling concerned, I decided to bring it up myself. Hey, what was that phone call about? That Taylor was detained.
Oh, that. It was a case of mistaken identity.
Huh? According to him, the girl who was apprehended shared the same name and surname as Taylor, leading the police to mistakenly contact him. But that doesn't make sense. How did the police get your contact details? Upon asking the obvious question, he suddenly became flustered.
I wouldn't know about that. Maybe the police have everyone's data nationwide. They probably looked it up from there, right?
That sounds like something out of a drama. As I was about to press further, he hastily changed the subject.
By the way, where were you today?
Huh? It was Taylor's birthday, so we went on a day trip to the theme park she wanted to go to. I invited you too, but you declined because of your business trip, remember? He seemed to have completely forgotten about that and looked embarrassed. Come to think of it, when you were on the phone, you said you were going to the police, but how could you do that while on a business trip?
Huh? Oh, that got sorted out somehow. Well, let's just drop it. Everything's fine now, so why dwell on it?
With an awkward laugh, he hurriedly went to take a shower, trying to evade the topic. The strange phone call and his odd behavior left me feeling increasingly uneasy. At that moment, a message arrived on his phone, which was left on the couch. He can be lazy at times, and I knew that he didn't lock his phone. Thinking quickly, I picked up his phone and opened the email. It was a message from a woman named Layla, saying,
Sorry about today. Jade has been getting light-fingered lately, and it's been a real help having you go to the police instead.
There were 5 heart emojis at the end, which led me to suspect the nature of his relationship with her. Presumably, Jade is Layla's daughter, and she must have been caught shoplifting, prompting him to go to the police to vouch for her. Now, his claim about being on a business trip seemed dubious. While neglecting his daughter's birthday, he's remarkably kind to his affair partner's child. Discovering his betrayal in this way was unexpected, yet I surprised myself with how calmly I took it. I had wanted to believe that we were a happy family of 3, but perhaps my heart had been growing cold for a long time without me realizing it. Before I knew it, my fingers were navigating through every screen on his phone. A week later, on Friday night, after sending Taylor to stay with her grandparents, I waited in the living room for my husband to return. It was past 11 o'clock when he arrived home, humming to himself. Sorry to interrupt your good mood, but can we talk for a moment? I said, pulling him into the living room without waiting for a response.
Hey, what's going on? I'm tired.
He retorted loudly. But as soon as we entered the room, he froze as if instantly cooled down.
Hey, darling.
Sitting on the couch with a wink was the woman who was his affair partner.
Huh? Why is Layla here?
Oh, don't raise your voice like that. Your wife invited me over.
Huh?
I, with a superior smile, gestured for him to sit down as well, then proceeded to explain how we ended up in this situation.
You! It's tasteless to go snooping through someone's phone. It's a violation of privacy.
If you want to blame someone, blame your lack of crisis management skills. Having obtained her phone number from his phone, I immediately contacted her and proposed a meeting with the 3 of us. Layla must have been quite confident in herself. She readily agreed and came to our house.
I heard you were about a decade older than me, but your wrinkles are beyond my imagination. They look like they won't even smooth out with an iron.
She looked down at me, giggling mockingly. Indeed, her skin had a certain glow, and from head to toe, she seemed meticulously cared for. Well, I understand why you spend so much time on self-care.
Exactly. If you abandon yourself like you do just because you have kids, it's over for you as a woman.
Oh, I think it's better than losing yourself to a man and abandoning your life to your child. Don't you?
What did you say?
It's said that when children misbehave, they may be seeking attention from their parents. I wondered if this shoplifting incident also had that aspect to it. Furthermore, leaving everything for someone else to clean up, especially another woman's husband, doesn't seem right to me.
It can't be helped. I was an esthetician at the time, so I couldn't even answer the police's call, and besides.
At this point, Her eyes gleamed ominously, and her mouth twisted into an ugly shape.
What's wrong with Connor taking care of his child's situation?
Huh?
Hey, Layla. Don't say unnecessary things.
Her words left my husband pale and sweating profusely.
Enough already. Let me tell you the truth.
Ignoring his words, Layla calmly crossed her legs with an air of composure.
Jade is without a doubt your child, Takeshi. I'd even be fine with a DNA test.
Her daughter is indeed 9 years old. Which means she was born when Taylor was just 1 year old. Does this mean that my husband and Layla's relationship goes back even further? Before we were married? Or perhaps even before? It dawned on me that I had been betrayed by him from the beginning. Or perhaps even before our marriage. Her confident expression and his drained face confirmed it as the truth. Suddenly, everything made sense, including his increasingly cold demeanor since that time.
Haha. So, shocked? Were you hoping to break us up right here? Too bad. You should have played your trump card at a time like this.
Layla had been trying to convince me that her daughter was Connor's child all along. She claimed that she intended to use this as a reason to push for a divorce with me, but each time, Connor stopped her.
He told me to wait until the time was right to leave his wife, that the time has come now. Right? Isn't that right, Connor?
She looked excitedly at him, but he wore an expression of disinterest for some reason. She gazed at him with a frustrated look on her face. Ha ha ha. At that moment, I couldn't contain a slight chuckle. Layla immediately shot a sharp glance in my direction.
Hey, what's so funny? You're probably secretly terrified at the thought of being dumped soon, yet you're putting on a brave face. It's pathetic.
I'm sorry. The game isn't over yet, but you seem so convinced you've won that I couldn't help but laugh.
Huh? What do you mean?
The thing is, you're not the only one with a hidden card. I pointed my phone screen right in front of her skeptical face. She stared at the displayed message for a while. Then, her face turned bright red.
What's this? What does this mean?
Layla's trembling with anger was understandable. Displayed on the screen were affectionate messages between him and an unfamiliar woman. In fact, after reading her messages, I inadvertently stumbled upon exchanges with this third woman while tinkering with his phone. Judging from the content, it seemed their relationship had started about a year ago. He was whispering sweet nothings that sent shivers down my spine, showing just how captivated he was by her. At this point, Layla snatched the phone from my hand and began to point at messages he had sent to the woman, checking something.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is terrible. He even put 10 hearts. The latest messages he sends me don't even have emojis.
Oh, his messages to me are quite plain too. We're in the same boat, aren't we, dear? I smiled gently, and she let out a high-pitched scream, lunging towards him.
Who is this woman? Was he cheating on me? Despite having me?
I couldn't believe what I was hearing from this mistress, considering her position. I was dumbfounded and speechless, but I decided to watch their exchange for a while.
Shut up. Men have been hunters since ancient times. It's only natural for us to always aim for new prey.
What? Do you think that kind of talk works? Talk nonsense while you sleep, you jerk.
That's just who you are. You may look pretty, but your language is trashy, and your place is a mess too. That kind of thing will get thrown away someday.
What did you say?
She, with her disheveled hair and agitated demeanor, was far from looking beautiful, to say the least. Hasn't Connor been visiting your place less frequently lately? I interjected, causing Layla to abruptly stop in her tracks. And today, he was at this new catch's place again, wasn't he? According to their messages, he has dinner there every Wednesday and Friday. I continued. Upon hearing this, she erupted even further. It seemed she remembered being lied to when she confronted Connor about his infrequent visits, being told that he was discussing divorce with his wife. This is unbelievable. Leading me on like this. Connor, I'll never forgive you. I'll sue you for damages. Breathing heavily through her shoulders, Layla glared at her husband before turning towards me and extending her right hand for a handshake. Let's team up and squeeze money out of Connor together. We're allies, aren't we? She proposed. At that moment, I straightened my expression and looked her squarely in the eyes. What? I'm his lawful wife, and you're just a mistress. We're not allies. Perhaps you should keep your fantasies to yourself, I replied, my voice surprisingly cold. Her outstretched hand hung awkwardly, trembling visibly, with nowhere to go. I'll be the one getting compensation from you. It's clear from past emails that you knew he was married and still engaged in a relationship, so there's no way to deny it, I asserted. You're lying. If he leaves me, I'll be the victim too, Layla retorted. True. Can you imagine how it feels to be taken by a stranger? Well, the damage you've suffered is nothing compared to what I've been through, I added. After informing her of my intention to hire a lawyer and formally pursue compensation, she collapsed right there on the spot. Now, on to the last person remaining. Connor, straightening his collar that was gripped by Layla, had an oddly refreshed expression on his face.
Oh, what a sight. That Layla, acting like my wife. It was getting annoying. Thanks for knocking some sense into her. I feel relieved. Thank you.
I couldn't help but question how he could be thanking me in this situation. There's no need for thanks. I did it for myself, not for you.
Well, whatever the reason, let's put everything behind us and start afresh.
With that, he offered his right hand with a smile. I never expected to be asked for an unwanted handshake twice in one day. Stop saying ridiculous things. But yes, if you pay the settlement money and child support properly, I'll let it all go.
Huh? What do you mean by that?
If I don't say it clearly, you won't understand? Please, let's get a divorce. Immediately, he began to tremble and cling to me.
Wait. Please, spare me from that.
His subsequent pleas were truly exasperating. The idea of divorce will affect my career at work, I don't know what our relatives will say, and other self-centered excuses. He has no intention of parting ways but still goes out and has a child with someone else, hoping to quietly settle back into his old life after being caught. Such a convenient story simply doesn't hold up. At this point, what are you even thinking? Honestly, I feel sorry for myself for having been married to someone like you.
Can't you forgive me no matter what?
Of course not.
Fine. I'll agree to a divorce then. But in return, let me be the one who leaves you.
At that moment, my palm struck fiercely, sending him unexpectedly flying far away. A week later, the divorce with Connor was finalized. I demanded a settlement of $2 million in compensation and $6 million in child support from him, while also seeking $1.5 million in compensation from Layla, his affair partner. Regarding the second affair partner, since he had lied about being single, I did not pursue financial claims against her. Ironically, He was reportedly pursued for compensation by that affair partner. Struggling to meet these payments, he tried borrowing from his parents, but the reason for the divorce came to light, leading to a rift between him and his family. I've heard that he now lives in a rundown apartment and works late-night shifts after finishing his regular job. Meanwhile, I've returned to my parents' home with my daughter, enjoying each day together happily. I want to do my best to protect Taylor's smile and continue moving forward. How was this story for you? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time. Hey, Melissa, what are you doing here? I was shocked to see my 8-year-old grandchild in ragged clothes, rummaging through the trash in the park. But the child said,
"That's not me,"
and ran away. I couldn't be mistaken. I couldn't shake off my concern, so I called my son.
It's the kids' sports day today. I'm busy.
I could hear children cheering and an announcer in the background. Then who was that child earlier? I couldn't get the image out of my head. And then, the unbelievable truth behind this scene was about to be revealed. I'm Megan Stroll, 58 years old. A few years ago, I lost my husband, who was an executive at a company, to illness. Thanks to the inheritance he left me, I've been living a comfortable life as a housewife. My son Matt, his wife Kim, and their 8-year-old daughter Melissa live about a 10-minute drive from my house.
"Grandma, your omelets are my favorite. Can I come over every day?"
I'd love that, but you have school.
"Then I'll live with you, Grandma. Then you can make them every day."
I couldn't help but adore my grandchild, who always loved being with me. My son worked at a large company thanks to his father's connections. I thought they were living comfortably, but he was apparently reckless with money, often spending his salary without thinking ahead, which caused fights with his wife. One day, Kim called me. I told Matt to stop wasting money, but he got angry, saying it's his money to use as he likes. Hearing my daughter-in-law's distress, I decided to visit their house to give my son a piece of my mind. When I rang the doorbell, Kim greeted me and led me to the living room. Matt, lying on the sofa fiddling with his phone, glanced at me.
What do you want?
He sighed deeply. Do you realize you're the breadwinner of this family?
Shut up. I know without you nagging.
We ended up having a huge argument. Because of that day, our relationship worsened, and he stopped coming to see me. Good grief, what a mess. However, when I contacted him to give Melissa her birthday present, he came over. I tried to hold back, but seeing his face, I couldn't help but nag him. Matt turned away, clearly not wanting to listen.
Every time I see you, it's just nag, nag, nag. From now on, just send Melissa's gifts. Don't come over.
I was taken aback by his unexpected response. What? Then I won't be able to see Melissa.
That's your punishment for making me angry. I'll never bring her over again. Spend your life alone.
I was shocked, turning pale at his harsh words. Even seeing my distress, he didn't change his expression and left with Melissa. Seeing my grandchild looking back at me worriedly only made the situation more heartbreaking. For a while, I felt depressed and withdrew into myself. Surely, Matt's feelings will change over time. I kept telling myself that to calm down. I didn't feel like going out, staying cooped up at home, but I decided I couldn't go on like that and resumed my daily walks. About 3 months later, I decided to walk a bit further than usual. I can still walk quite well, I thought, but suddenly I felt tired and decided to rest at a nearby park. There, I saw a shabby-looking girl rummaging through a trash can. As I approached and saw her face, I gasped. "Melissa? Is that you, Melissa?"
No.
She glanced at me with wide eyes and a shocked expression, then ran away. Did I mistake her? No, she looked just like Melissa. Unable to shake off my concern, I called my son.
What do you want? I'm busy with the kids' sports day.
That can't be true. Because... Before I could respond, he muttered complaints. Then, from the background, I heard children cheering and an announcer. Next is the race. Is everyone ready? It echoed. Indeed, Matt seemed to be at the sports day.
Did you hear that announcement?
Yes. I know you're at the sports day. But it's strange. I saw a girl who looked exactly like Melissa rummaging through the trash in the park. I couldn't have mistaken my dear grandchild. As I insisted, he paused briefly.
Ha! What are you talking about? It's definitely someone else. Ridiculous. Don't call me for such nonsense.
He quickly returned to his usual tone and abruptly hung up. Could it be a mistake, as he said? I felt a strange sense of unease and couldn't get that scene out of my mind. Feeling uneasy, I continued my walk, naturally heading towards my grandchild's school. But the usually lively grounds were empty and silent. What's going on? I was frozen in surprise when I saw a poster. The date showed the sports day had ended last week. My son's words were false. Then, the girl I saw in the park must have been Melissa. If so, where was my son? Questions filled my mind. Thinking it would be faster to confirm, I went straight to my son's house and rang the doorbell. After a short wait, the girl I saw in the park stood there in ragged clothes.
Grandma, why did you come?
As soon as she saw me, she shrank back, looking like she was about to cry. I hugged her tightly. So it was you in the park, Melissa. But why are you dressed like that? Where are your parents? No matter how many times I asked, she only repeated,
It's nothing. I'm fine.
Anyway, I'm coming in. Melissa tried to stop me from taking off my shoes, but I entered the house forcefully. The hallway was covered in dust, and when I opened the living room door, garbage was scattered everywhere, and it smelled of spoiled food. I was speechless at the sight of the room, so messy there was no place to step. What is going on here?
I was just about to clean up. Grandma, please leave.
No matter what I asked, she wouldn't answer. The bread on the floor had expired a week ago. The fridge was empty. Could Melissa have been alone all this time? As I pondered, her stomach growled loudly. I couldn't leave her there, so after convincing her despite her refusal, I brought her to my house, bathed her, and fed her. At first, she was timid, but as she took bite after bite, she began to relax. You have always loved Grandma's omelets. Are they good? She nodded repeatedly, tears streaming down her face as she enjoyed her favorite food. It was like she was finally letting out all her pent-up emotions. With a full stomach and feeling more relaxed, she began to talk. there was an unbelievable truth behind my grandchild rummaging through the trash.
Mom had to have surgery and has been in the hospital, so she hasn't been home.
I hadn't heard anything from my son or daughter-in-law. They probably didn't tell me because we hadn't been in contact since the argument over her birthday present. What about your dad?
As soon as Mom went to the hospital, he said he had a new family and left. He hasn't come back.
I was shocked. A new family? The thought of what my son might be doing made me feel even sorrier for her. Why didn't you contact Grandma? You can always rely on me when you're in trouble. At that, her calm expression darkened.
Dad said if I told anyone, I'd never see Mom again. So I kept quiet.
After some time, she ran out of food and couldn't bear the hunger, so she lived by scavenging from park trash cans. However, Melissa was attending elementary school, so she must have been eating at least school lunches. Were you going to school in tattered clothes all the time?
Dad called the school and told them that I didn't want to go, so he said he would send me to some distant relatives for a while.
When I listened carefully, she told me that she wanted to go to school to see her friends, but even that wasn't allowed. My son must have kept her from seeing anyone so she wouldn't reveal what was going on. I called Kim's phone to verify the surprising story I heard from my granddaughter. What? Is that true? I was also surprised. Kim had been hospitalized for surgery due to a gynecological illness and thought Matt was properly taking care of things during that time. However, recently, even when she called, he found various reasons not to connect her with our granddaughter, which she found odd. I'm sorry for any trouble I caused. How is she? She's eating well now and has become energetic again, so don't worry. To my daughter-in-law, whose voice trembled with worry, I assured her that I would take full responsibility for our granddaughter, and ended the call. After that, I immediately contacted my son. When I questioned him about everything, he shamelessly justified himself.
She's fine, so there's no need to raise your voice. When you called the other day, it was her son's sports day.
Do you realize what you're doing?
This woman's my mistress for now, but I plan to settle down with her eventually. Besides, I've always wanted a son, so it's perfect.
He casually revealed that he was living with the other woman and her child, neglecting his own daughter. I felt my blood boil and wished I could slap him right there.
And I told her I'd make sure she paid if she snitched.
What's with all your selfish remarks? Leaving her alone and not letting her go to school is not what a parent does. Even as I lectured him, he let it go in one ear and out the other, starting to justify himself even more.
I've smoothed things over with the school, and since Kim's in the hospital, all the calls from the school come to me. As long as no one finds out, it's fine. I'm really smart, aren't I?
Listening to him laugh about something that could involve the police, I felt a chill and a sense of dread. What are you planning to do about Kim?
She's no use since she can't have kids anymore. I've decided to start a new family with my mistress.
I felt terribly sorry for my daughter-in-law, who was suffering in the hospital. However, my son, ignoring my persuasion, even said,
Tell her to leave my house as soon as possible.
I was utterly disgusted by his selfishness and shook with anger. But I realized continuing the conversation wouldn't solve anything, so I calmed down and ended the call. Later, I took my granddaughter to visit Kim in the hospital. She hugged our granddaughter tightly. I'm sorry for making you suffer. Tears streamed down her face.
If you're well, then I'm fine. I hope you get better soon.
I'll work hard so we can live together again. Please take care of her until then. As she bowed deeply, I gently patted her shoulder. Leave it to me. I smiled. I asked my granddaughter, who said she was thirsty, to get a drink. Then, I apologized for my son's selfishness and told Kim the whole truth. How awful. I'm the one most hurt by not being able to have children. How could he cheat at such a time? Understanding her pain as a woman, my eyes welled up. Hearing the truth, she cried and decided to divorce him. I think it's best for both you and her if you separate from him and raise her. But we need to make him pay first. It's my fault for being powerless. She blamed herself, but I told her it wasn't her fault but my son's. Just then, my granddaughter returned with the drink. For a while, she clung to her mother, looking very happy. I was determined to avoid any more sadness for these two. On the way back from the hospital. That's it. I have a plan to corner him. I devised a strategy to deal with my son. A month later, I called my son. Kim agreed to divorce you. I've moved her belongings out, so come to your old house when convenient.
Really? You're amazing, Mom. Thanks. I'll be there soon.
He seemed to be contacting someone and responded that he'd come in 2 weeks. With Kim still in the hospital, I facilitated their divorce. When the day he was supposed to come arrived, I waited, and a moving truck stopped in front of the house. From the second-floor window, I saw him and his mistress smiling as they walked up. I told my granddaughter not to come downstairs no matter what and went down. As I waited inside, I heard the sound of keys in the front door.
Ha! The key's not working. What's going on?
Irritated, he spoke from the other side of the door. I sighed and opened the door forcefully, glaring at him.
Mom? What are you doing here?
I told you I'd be waiting at your old house. He seemed shocked, eyes wide, not expecting to see me inside. What did you bring in the truck?
My new wife's things.
What are you talking about? This isn't your house anymore. I changed the locks too.
What? You can't do that. This is my house. You're the one who told me to come here.
Embarrassed, his mistress nudged him. What's going on? Looking ready to explode, he stepped towards me, and I stood my ground. Remember, this house was under Dad's name?
Yeah, so it'll be mine eventually.
He insisted it was his right to inherit. You're mistaken. I inherited this house after Dad passed. He must have lived carelessly, not even knowing this. If he had lived happily with them, I might have left the house to him eventually. But he abandoned his wife, who went through a tough surgery, and neglected our granddaughter. I revealed another harsh truth. By the way, I changed the ownership to Kim's name. He couldn't believe it and glared at me, but I wasn't fazed. I had planned everything so she and our granddaughter wouldn't struggle after I was gone. The divorce is finalized, and if you try to enter the house, it's a crime. I picked up my phone to call the police, and he hesitated. If you don't want to be reported, leave with the moving truck immediately.
You've got to be kidding. I already gave up the apartment, and everything's here.
Oh, that reminds me. I put your stuff in a storage unit. Here's the key and the bill. He yelled angrily, but I pretended not to hear. Goodbye. As I tried to close the door, he pushed back.
I know you're really mad. Let us stay at the old house for a bit.
I shook my head and gave him a cold stare.
Don't you want a successor? Her son would secure the future.
He tried to convince me desperately. Listening closely, I learned she was a single mom with a 6-year-old boy. 2 months ago, when Kim's illness was discovered, Matt started an affair with her. When I heard about the sports day, I thought he'd been cheating for a long time, but it had only been 2 months. Leaving his wife and child for a woman he barely knew was pathetic. I asked if she knew he had a family, and she nodded. If they're my blood, boy or girl, they're precious. Melissa is my only grandchild. Realizing I wouldn't budge, he glared at me menacingly, unlike my son. I stared back. From today, we're no longer mother and son. I can't accept someone who abandons his sick wife and child. He sneered.
Fine. It's a relief not to deal with a nagging old lady.
His rotten attitude left me speechless. Your job performance is terrible. Your boss only kept you because of your father. When I told him about this, he reconsidered your position. He often had poor attendance and behavior, likely leading to his dismissal.
No way. I'll lose my job and salary. How will I live?
He finally realized the gravity of his situation.
Mom, I'm sorry. I'll change my ways. Don't abandon me. What if your son suffers?
His words fueled my anger. How dare you? Who left Melissa alone without food? Enough nonsense. Seeing my fury, he fell silent. No inheritance for you. And you'll pay $30,000 for the affair and $70,000 for Melissa's support in one lump sum.
I'll have nothing left. How will I survive?
He turned pale and trembled. I turned to the silent woman beside him. I'm charging you $100,000 for knowing he was married. She protested. This wasn't the deal. He promised me a luxurious life. She lashed out at him, but he was stunned and broken. Don't just sit there. The movers are waiting.
Ah!
It's too early to scream. Leaving Melissa alone is a crime. Be prepared. I handed him the storage info and slammed the door. I watched from the window as the truck drove away, saying a final farewell in my heart. I then patted Melissa's head and called Kim. I dealt with him. Now you just need to get better. Her doctor had just given her the all clear to go home. Melissa could now fully enjoy being with her mom. Matt ended up in a gray, gloomy place for abandoning Melissa. After being released, he paid a large sum and was left penniless. The mistress, after being charged, left him. Jobless and alone, he eventually disappeared. Rumors said he was seen scavenging in a park. I worried, but he brought it on himself. Kim was soon discharged and lived with Melissa. Melissa happily went to school every day, and I enjoyed time with my grandchildren.
Grandma, your omelets are so delicious. I want them every day.
Her smile is my greatest joy. How did you like this story? Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.